Hey, what's up guys, Stokely, and this is going to be an awesome battle in the Ancient Empires mod. I'm going to be playing as the Egyptians, or the Ptolemaic Kingdom, against the Seleucid Kingdom, and Indie Pride is going to be commanding the opposite force. So if you don't know, the Ancient Empires mod is still in beta. They're still working out some kinks with it, but the general idea is to bring the units and the time period of Rome 2 into the Attila game, which obviously brings a lot of benefits on the campaign when you have family trees, when you have things like siege escalation and whatnot. And yeah, it's a really cool mod, lots of awesome units. The unit sizes have been tweaked, combat mechanics have been tweaked as well. So in any case, in this battle what we're going to be doing is kind of a face-off that's supposed to be kind of the Wars of the Diadochi, the Successor Kingdom Wars. And yeah, it's going to be pretty sweet. So my build right here, I decided to bring these chariots, and man, oh man, do these Ptolemaic chariots look awesome. 45 men per unit, massive blobs, much larger than the units, I believe, 12 that you would have in the standard Rome 2 game. So I was eager to test these guys out. So that's kind of my front line. They're going to be positioned up here in the center. I have mercenary Rhodian slingers also going to start to get some shots off against Indy's pike line. I have my own pike line with the honored Gema pikemen on the rightmost flank, some more basic pikemen, and on the far left some Libyan cheap pikemen. In the rear I have some more archers, mercenary Cretans. I have a row of Macumoi light infantry which toss javelins. Then I have picked Macumoi and Thracian military settlers in the back, so more elite infantry held in the back, royal sword bearers as well. The units in this game look freaking awesome, that is for sure. And it is good to get some nice historical gameplay and units back in business. Get away from Total Warhammer every once in a while is nice. On the right flank, also take a look at the Agema Cav here. Massive unit sizes, 113. That's another thing that I love about this mod, is the varied unit sizes, the more accurate unit sizes. You have different formations and whatnot. So I have 3 of these guys peeling off to take on the right flank, where Indy is also going to be moving forward in parallel. You can see some of his cav going to the extremity of the battlefield, as you would have seen historically. A lot of the cavalry jousts taking place kind of far off on the flanks. However, I am trying to pair with my attacking cavalry unit. I'm trying to pair a supporting infantry unit of basically peltasts here, so hopefully to force the enemy back. So that's my right flank. On the left flank, I also am doing a similar type of move. However, I'm pulling up some mercenary Cretan archers, keeping my Macumonoi cavalry kind of tucked into my units, and then my archers are starting to start out and screen against the enemy force. Indy is keeping at bay with his allied Tarentine Cav, on both flanks. Up in his main line, he's going to be starting to move forward with the median bronze shields. Instead of having an elite, well, actually no, he does have some elite troops on his far right flank. Take that back. Yeah, a lot of silver shields. The rest is going to be bronze shields. So he has kind of a medium tier with heavy tier, whereas I have high, medium, and then cheap on this flank. So we'll see kind of how that engagement pans out. He has way more heavy infantry supporting his front lines. I have way more archers and some more exotic units in the form of my elephants in the back, and also these chariots. So we'll see how this goes down. He has a heavy allied Cretan archer ring bearing down on that flank. So let's see how this goes. And as always, we're going to get up close and personal. I love seeing pike lines move forward. Something just about the massive ranks, seeing the pikes, the sarissas come down like that is epic. Let's actually get a nice flanking shot here. So what I could have done in this battle is sit back and fire away at Indy Pride. I have my flanks secured. I have the archer advantage. What I could do is just fire away at his archers, pick away at his pelt, sort of his early line. But what I decided to do was not sit back. I decided to be aggressive. I wanted to see pike walls hit one another head on. And so what I decided to do is move forward. Indy's also going to start to move forward with his allied Cretans. You can see I'm going to start to push up also with some of my light infantry, and this is going to be meant to take out his elite units pushing up the flank. So he's going up against my cheapest units. So what I figured I'd do is try and even the odds for my guys. Ooh, man, look at this force. The blocks of infantry just pushing forward. This is awesome. So I'm going to unload with some of my own javelins. Both sides going to be unloading. Here comes my guys starting to push forward. And now you're going to have the jostling for an advantage in the front lines. A couple more of my guys coming in. archer fire going to be taking out swaths of our units. You can see the back lines of my force here taking quite a beating. Same thing with the enemy. And so now you have this pretty brutal exchange up the center. But what I'm able to do, put this back on slow motion before we get back into the action, but what I'm able to do with my greater pike lines is pull Libyan pikemen out to this front. What I was hoping to do is kind of box out his Agamas and then start to swing into the rear of this civil shield pikemen. But my own units are doing tremendous work. Tremendous. They are doing great. Doing a good job here, but my other unit that was unsupported has absolutely routed tier 1 against tier 2 silver shields. No contest, they were shattered. Meanwhile, up through the rest of the front here, we can watch the action take place. Mind you, pike battles do take a long time. This mod in particular does slow down the combat quite a bit as well. So this is going to be a long, drawn-out fight. I have more pikes than Indy, so you know, things should be in my favor, particularly on this side where I have my elite units going up against Indy's own units. Yes, the battle is slow, and yes, lots of volleys going on overhead, but I should win this. Again, my greater numbers of troops are going to start sweeping around the flanks, and so I'm going to start to deal death to his front lines. What I'm trying to do is gain an advantage on the flank, so I'm pushing forward with my mercenary troops. Already been able to kind of get the drop on Indy's cavalry, so I'm forcing back his allied Tarentines. His other allied Tarentine is forcing its way back, and so what I'm going to start doing is pushing forward with a huge number of troops, chariots in tow, and what I'm going after is hammer and anvils and soft targets. So here we go, my guys charging forward. Indy's going to try and swivel back with some more of his units coming to reinforce. Meanwhile, pikes are still engaged. I have not gotten a decisive advantage. Most of the combat, as you can see, is kind of boiled down. Troops tentatively poking at each other, but no outbreaks on this front. He is swiveling around with some Royal Galatian Guard. That's going to be deadly, but I'm also coming in with some of my own sword bearers. And you can see, yep, Ptolemaic chariots are going to try and target these Royal Galatians. On this flank, I did want to show what's happening here. So one of my pikes that was moving forward to hold back the enemy, Libyans are going to try and box out the enemy. So you can see my strategy, pin the center and force back the enemy on both sides. My pike's kind of getting in position, getting clipped right here. But what I have with my cavalry is I hit Indy's general. Cav battles are pretty long, so I hit him on one hand, and then what I'm coming back is with the rest of my Machimonoi coming in and hitting the back of his allied Cretans. My rear lines here have been firing away, pretty much exhausted and expended at this point. And now I'm going to start to get hammer and anvils. Meanwhile, the rest of my chariots and my elephants are going to try and come into this position. Meanwhile, in the back, he has some troops trying to fire away at my elephants, but I have enough units to force them back. Now let's watch this engagement where my cavalry and my infantry are all starting to come in here. I did hit his Royal Galatians, steamrolled them with my chariots. So let's watch as they continue to charge through. Yes, they are large units, but they've been somewhat balanced out to the point where they're not super powerful. You could see the first volley from his infantry in the rear line are actually going to take out a fair amount of chariots. And as I charge through them, they're going to get stuck and start to get pinned down. The rest of my units charging into the back of his pikes, tearing into them. It's going to definitely cause disruption. You can see I shattered one of his pikes. That's going to uninhibit my most elite troops, allow them to start pushing forward. However, my chariot at this point has routed tier 3 chariots. Boom, gone in an instant. Now they did help break the flank, which was crucial, but now my cavalry is tied down in a prolonged infantry engagement. Sword bearers and mercenary spears are going to be tying down this flank. But meanwhile, you know, he's beaten back my flank here. I had brought in all my cavalry, but the supporting infantry just tore into my guys. The javelin's doing lots of work. Combined efforts of both of his silver shields is finally going to take out my tier 1 units. My own elephants are in the mix to try and support. Indy, however, is going to throw in his general and other forces to try and keep them at bay. What I want to do here is send them into the flank of his units before my pike line can collapse. I do have to also mind my rear line where he's coming in with some allied Tarentine cav, being able to give my guys the slip going around my units, and now he's going to be in a perfect position to steamroll through my light skirmishers. And yeah, Tarentine Cav going to bowl over my units really easily. And this is bad for me. My guys absolutely just shatter in this case. And then they have basically open access to my Gamma pikemen, which are not quite done finishing off the enemy. They are just about done. I am coming in with lots of infantry to try and keep these guys back, but they have, you know, gotten the work done that they needed. Killed off my skirmishers, going to start peppering my elite units. Meanwhile, on this flank, the cavalry charge has been met with more cavalry, and Indy's, they do seem a little bit more powerful than me. My tier 3 routing in that case against his tier 3. so things not going my way. I did have that other spear unit that was here. It has been caught out in the rear. What I should have done is pulled it back, sandwiched the back of his companions, but I was at the same time scared of getting hit by his swords. So we'll see how that goes. So now it's going to be a fight for the rear lines. Brought back my general to clean this up. I have more units firing away. But meanwhile, my center is going to actually start breaking. Indy's been doing good focus fire with his archers. They've now turned about to shoot my guys. But it means that the pressure that they've put on me in here in the center did not go in my favor. So the pike line finally turning towards Indy. And even though I had a numerical advantage, the qualitative advantage was Indy's. And so he's going to start to win out. Meanwhile, my elephants on this flank tried to charge into the enemy blob, but though they were more numerous than in previous Total War games, they actually ended up being much more vulnerable to enemy fire, and they went down pretty easily with combined fire from these nearby Cretans, the javelins, and so they ended up getting almost no kill, 45 kills. But for very heavy elephants, not doing too well. That's kind of representative of Attila's elephants, just not very powerful units. Meanwhile, Indy's swordsmen have cleaned up on the flank. It looks like swords are the way to go in this mod, doing lots of work. So they're going to be picking apart my heavy infantry, fighting amidst the corpses. And then he's going to get to the back of my spears, where I was starting to get an advantage. Cavalry's still running loose. I'm having a hard time chasing them down. Indy's general is at half strength. And so I'm going to bring my own general in here along with some spears. Try and see if I can't take him out. Slaughter him and then maybe get a morale advantage going for me. Because, yes, my pike wall is collapsing, but I have swords in the mix. So I should be able to delay it. And if I can deliver a critical strike on his general plus these spears, things may turn around in my favor. I do still have elite units holding out here. Again, my pikemen, other units holding strong. He does have his Tarentine Cav in my rear. And yep, more units actually. So these Tarentine Cav being very brutal. I did not have similar luck striking at the rear of Indy. Instead, I kind of stuck in my cavalry into engagements where they ended up getting bogged down. Had I had one or two more free, I could have dealt a lot of damage with his guys. But that money was sunk into chariots and elephants, and it looks like that money was not to my advantage. My chariots got destroyed without much gain. Same thing with the elephants. So looks like infantry and cavalry was a much better investment. That being said, I have won this side of the battlefield. Again, my pikemen going to be destroying Indy's own units. So it looks like both of our elite rightmost flanks won, as would have happened historically. So now we're going to have a realignment, and we're going to start pushing back. My archers, mercenary Cretans, are going to start tearing into the rear of the enemy bronze shields. And then meanwhile, I do break the enemy general right there. Very happy to see that. And I have my own general. He's going to clean up the backline. So all of a sudden, this means that I have essentially the right half of the battlefield in my favor. I have royal sword bearers with 27 kills engage in this fight. They should be able to clean that up. He does have 2 infantry that I have to worry about, especially Royal Galatians with 75 kills, but I'm going to start doing a pretty significant push up through the center, and then my general is going to be very useful for relieving action here. You got to get kind of a half-hearted side charge into this unit. Not the best of angles, but now just the debuff by being charged in the rear is going to get these guys to break pretty soon. My own spears are going to start pushing forward. So I'm going to free up yet another unit for me to charge up against the front. Indy is reforming some of his pike blocks. These are silver shields, so my guys are going to have to deal with a bit more of a fight than they had against the other units. Plus, the archer fire going to be pretty damaging against my guys. And take a look at this huge, hefty block of Cretan archers just firing away at my blob. Pretty indiscriminate in how they choose their targets. So had I had maybe 1 or 2 more cavalry forces, I could have swept into the rear here. But meanwhile, what's going to be happening is going to focus fire on my guys. A game of pikemen going to be going down. Archers also committed to this front. So things are not looking good for my exposed unit. I do have my general in the rear broken through the back. So it looks like I do have that much needed cavalry force. And now I'm going to have to decide where do I commit it. Indy does have an infantry unit turned about with javelins, so that could be pretty devastating. I have to decide, what am I going to go for? If I charge this infantry unit, I could get hit by javelins, and it looks like that's what's going to happen. What I decided to do is break free and try and charge at the enemy pike wall, taking lots of fire from his archers. Get a pretty decent strike, but this is all exposing me to those archers. Oh, and here comes this guys. Boom, lining up a devastating javelin volley. Look at my guys paying a heavy price. Even this dude with an arrow in his back. Yeah, not much I can do against these remaining heavy numbers of archers, although the one solace I do have is that they're low on ammo. And I have a heroic last stand from my picked Makamoy here, surrounded on all sides by infantry. Look at my dudes positioned here. They are scattered in a rough square formation, holding strong, the inner ranks being penetrated. I have never seen a unit fight like hell like this. This is crazy stuff. So they're going to be holding super strong. The back lines here, tying up 3 units, very, very good. Triple third tier units going to be doing work for me. I'm starting to clean up the enemy. The archers as well, having depleted their ammo, are having to fight my guys point blank. This silver shielded unit is also going to be starting to waver. My archers in the back lines doing good work, so it looks like I may be able to gain an advantage here. However, Indy is still running train with his Royal Galatians up to 139. Meanwhile, my cavalry in the back is still holding strong. A game like here, just holding up forever, seemingly. Cavalry battles in this game do last forever. I mean, it probably has something to do with the fact that the cavalry is staffed with magical ghost units who can fly around and seemingly don't even die. So yeah, that's kind of funny. But yeah, this cavalry engagement basically started at the very beginning of this battle and is still going on. 29 kills to my guys, so a very, very slow fight. And I really, really needed this cavalry engagement to be over in my favor, and it looks like it is kind of happening slowly but surely against these Tarentines. I mean, I should win. General fled recently, causing morale debuffs to the enemy. Yep, balance forces in my favor, so I would have wished I could have won this engagement, had those cavalry back to help my guys out. But the center has kind of bogged down to a stalemate. My spears are fighting his spears, but Indy does have the final decisive numbers to get around my flank. Archers here are going to try and get some fire onto the companion cav, try and break that, allow me to come back with my cav and hammer and anvil this vulnerable unit, cluster in the back, but we'll see if that ends up happening. At the same time, my rear line here has finally been killed after their heroic action on top of the hill. Slaughter, and here they're going to rout. So Indy now has 3 fresh units, and it is fresh, or maybe not fresh units, but 3 now uncommitted units that he can move around the flanks. This would have been an important part in the battle. Battles in antiquity slogged on for a long time, and it was, at some point, probably both sides would end up winning some cluster of the battlefield. But it was really, really important for those commanders of that local engagement to do something with that victory. Oftentimes, the troops would pursue the enemy off the battlefield and just never seize on the strategic advantage they had gained. It took a disciplined army like the Romans or even Alexander and Hannibal as well to take a victorious force, rein them in from seemingly the human natural tendency to chase the enemy, seek to strip them of their armor, rally those guys back and recommit them to a life or death scenario, bring them back to the battle and exploit, the enemy's rear. That was a sign of a disciplined, well-commanded force, and it seems like under General Indy Pride, his force is definitely going to have those traits. And yep, he's going to swing around with his reinforcements, and he's going to start to deal the death blow to my remaining Agema pikemen. In the back lines, my archers are getting some flaming shots off on his guys. I was hoping that would have some morale debuffs and crack his units, but no, it looks like my guys on the other side are going to be going down. Balance bar definitely not in my favor at this point. Look at the numbers. I deployed 6,000 men, Indy deployed 4,500, and of those units left, he has 2,000, whereas I only have 578. So yeah, things are not looking in my favor. A fun fight nonetheless. I really like this traditional classical period battles. I love seeing pike wall against pike wall. It's not something you ever really see in movies, surprisingly. Just it's so cinematic. You never see the wars of the Daidoshi covered at all, like hardly even in documentaries, hardly in movies. Yeah, it's just such a shame, and so I'm glad we get to go back and witness this kind of historical type scenario here. The mod seems very promising. Units look good, but I do have to say there are some balancing issues with the way unit morale happens, and also cavalry fights do seem to last forever. Nonetheless, very, very fun mod. Definitely enjoying it. And, oh yeah, another thing to mention is elephants do seem to be a bit tosh at the moment. Same with chariots. Now, yes, I did kind of throw them into the fray, but they seem very much like glass cannons with a bit more glass than cannon to them. So I was a little disappointed to see that. It seems like the heavy infantry build that Indy Pride brought was a bit more favorable. Now, you know, I don't want to take away from his strategy. He played it out very, very well. Cavalry in the rear did a lot more damage to me, and I squandered some of the advantages I had early on in terms of skirmishing advantage. But then again, I've never been one for kiting, or well, actually, no, I take that back. I do like to kite, and I do like to play strategically and, you know, prick the enemy. But in a battle like this that is more themed around visuals, I just wanted to get to the action as soon as possible. And I hope that's something that you guys enjoyed, and it's definitely made for a much more action-packed battle. Oh, and I believe these are some of his Galatians back in the mix. My Gema not wanting to rout. Jeez, these guys are uber strong. And I actually broke the Cretans. My guy's fully surrounded. Yeah, let's take a look at this unit on both sides. I'm going to be trying to hold out. Yeah, crazy stuff. It also makes me wonder, like, I would love to see a Total War Warhammer traditional Total War crossover where you have, you know, what would it be like if you had a pike line like this go up against some orcs? Like, we've seen it with barbarians, but against orcs, what would a pike line look like going up against undead zombies, going up against arachnaroks? Man, all kinds of cool stuff. I hope in the future that CA somehow is able to implement that. It's one of the things that I was wondering if they would eventually do with Total War Arena, if they would ever be able to get the licensing to cross over Warhammer units into that. Do you know how crazy that would be? But yeah, really cool stuff. I would be interested to see them implement something like that in maybe even a mod that seeks to bring in classical period units into Total War Warhammer. That would be such a funny and such a cool mashup to see. You know, replace the Empire with the Roman Empire, and you could get some really, really interesting stuff. Oh man, maybe even some like fantasy units where you could have Roman skins, but maybe even allow them to seemingly progress in this fantasy period where you have Roman wizards also. Oh man, that just has me thinking for all kinds of possibilities. But anyways, that's enough for this battle. Let's end the replay and take a look at some of the final stats here. Tons of units deployed to the battle. Most of the kills actually being dealt by, it looks like, my general in the final stages and some of my elite pikes. Skirmishers underperformed, didn't use them well. And these units actually in the end did fairly well in terms of kills, just didn't deliver the decisive blows I was expecting them to. For Indy Pride, much better job with the archers, much better job with elite infantry. My own infantry, yeah, I brought really crap units, just did not hold up very well. His own pike line doing fairly well, and yeah, cavalry doing pretty good too. Oh, especially, yeah, these two Tarantine units. So the other ones I dismissed on the battlefield easily. The other two were more slippery, and those are what did me in. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this battle. Stay tuned for more. Stay tuned for actually more news for this mod as well. Like I said, it's in beta. They're working on it, and it is going to be some really exciting stuff to see it when it finally does get released. Anyways, peace out. See ya.